Tammy Bruce is a radio host, of course, president of Independent Women's Voice, a frequent guest on the show and joining us tonight. So, Tammy, Mark Garagos, who I think up until about 20 minutes ago was a CNN legal analyst, is staking out a pretty aggressive position here, which is it's all lies, my client is innocent. Is that a tenable position for him to take?
Well, I don't think so. There are very few situations in life that are so clearly obvious in our world.
Yeah.
And this one is one of them. Mr. Garagos, of course, has his own problems with his association with Michael Avenatti. He's had a bad month in this kind of situation. But now his clients are really himself and the woman he was working with in this case. And their problem is, lawyers can say what they want to in the courtroom, but they are not protected when it comes to what they say outside of the courtroom. And this is what the problem is for them. And all of us were looking quite perplexed, I think, once those charges were dropped, which in and of itself was bizarre. But they didn't just go away and be happy that they got away with something and that, counting their blessings. Mr. Smollett continued on arguing that this really did happen to me, that all of this, I've never lied, this is all really true, which means two young African-American men that have worked with him, that were his trainers, that acted sometimes as fill-ins on the Empire show, somehow, for some reason, wanted to beat him up. And for some reason, wanted to look like Trump supporters. And for some reason, in all of this, one of the arguments that Mr. Smollett's lawyers, I should say the brother's lawyer is making, is that they would have had to put on white face to confuse him. In none of this, Tucker, is Mr. Smollett explaining why those two particular young men would have done this to him. The bottom line is, and this is the good news, Tucker, is that either this case or the case of Chicago suing Smollett for the money he owes them will go to court. If it does, that means we might find out more information about why this happened in the first place, this dropping of the charges, in addition to an inspector general for the county there, I think it's Lake County, is also investigating the prosecutor and why these charges were dropped in the first place.
I wonder about, I've always been less interested in Jussie Smollett, who seems like a very troubled character, than in some of his promoters and hangers-on. So Kamala Harris, or that phony senator from New Jersey whose name I can never remember, who's also running for president, Cory Booker. Both of them describe this as a lynching. Have they revised their view? Have they apologized? Are they following this case carefully, do you know?
Well, Kamala Harris was asked about the strangeness of the charges being dropped in a television interview, I recall, early on. And she, almost in kind of a coy, smug way, said, I have no idea what happened there. I've no idea why this would have happened. But there was no real normal reactions to any of these events. And maybe in Chicago it's normal, but they have a mayor coming out in Chicago, a woman named Lightfoot. And she has also said, she takes office on May 20th, that she, too, doesn't like how this turned out, and that she's very curious to find out what transpired. So she ran as a reformer. She very well could be. It'll be very interesting to see if she delivers. And in the meantime, it'll be interesting to see if people in certain positions in government, in fact, knew things or were threatened, perhaps, and there's other things they didn't want, perhaps, discussed in a trial, and that maybe would explain why these kinds of charges are dropped. But it could be anything. And the number of investigations going on, and maybe this lawsuit, will help us come to a conclusion about what really happened here.
I hope so. And hopefully there are some real apologies.
We deserve it, and so do the people of Chicago.
They're deserved. I agree completely.
Yeah.
Tammy, great to see you tonight. Thank you.